I'm going to throw out this next group, a lot of which we actually have not profiled on the official just yet. And I want each of you to pick one guy to kind of just mention before we go into the second half of kind of the performances. You've got KJ Lacey, Tramel Jones, Jaron Kiwe Saga Pulatele, Alex Mansky, Ryan Montgomery, Luke Nickel, Malik Washington, and Kevin Sperry. So a big group of kind of some middle of the road guys. You know, your choice, Matt. Anyone out of that group you kind of were interested to see, curious about, or didn't think belonged even?
I'll go with Tramel Jones. He was somebody I wasn't super aware of beforehand. I had seen positive news about recent good camp performances. I believe he did well at OT7 specifically. And then he came in. I thought he shined, especially on the Pro Day event. I believe he had one of the highest scores for most of the services in the E11. I mean, he's just spun the ball so well. You know, he's kind of a little bit on the shorter side, but I think he can be a really consistent and ready to go playmaker. You know, commit to Florida State currently, so they do have Luke Romano from last class and Trevor Jackson, of course. So I don't really love that for you know, CFF outlook. And he's not really a guy that I think, you know, the NFL will love. You know, just, you know, shorter side guy. But you know, I just think he's a really good player. I wish he was going to a more fulfilling college program.
All right, fair enough. David, anybody out of that group you want to highlight for one reason or another?
Yeah, I'll go with Malik Washington. Sounded like, from a trade standpoint, he was near the top. He's got a pretty big arm. He's a big athlete. I will say, I think he's older for the class. You can kind of tell he's got a pretty mature body, pretty mature build. Statistically, he doesn't stand out very much at this point. Not a very efficient passer. So, you know, monitor him his senior year, but he does play for a big program, top 3 program, I believe, in Maryland. It probably played decent competition relative to what they get. I think they might have played. I think they play out-of-state teams. Don't quote me on that. I can't, not sure. So, but I think they do play a good strength of schedule. There wasn't a whole lot of mention of his accuracy, so that's something to kind of look for to see if he can kind of develop in that regard. But everyone seemed to be impressed with like his intangibles, his personality, his leadership and confidence. So I think he's interesting and just the guy to monitor as a senior.
All right, and then we have tier 4, kind of just based on how they did, like David said early on in this competition. Kamario Taylor, a guy that Matt and I certainly have had our eye on. Ty Hawkins, which we reviewed just last week. Achilles Smith Jr., who we reviewed and was not terribly impressive to us, at least. TJ Lateef headed to Nebraska, and Robert McDaniel, who was the last man in bubble guy with a late scratch. Who bailed due to injury or whatever?
George McIntyre.
Yes. Oh, and that was a big loss. I mean, that was like a 5-star dude. A lot of people have him as top 3 quarterback in class. And George McIntyre said he's not playing. So Robert McDaniel stepped in. And so that rounds out the whole field. And so I think let's transition here to what we saw on day 2. Now, that was the pro day, if I'm correct here, and the accuracy challenge. So 2 things that are pretty important. Also 2 things that like are very camp stuff, right? I mean, there's no pressure, there's no defense, really. So, you know, it's a workout. And so, David, take us through what you thought. You know, a guy like Julian Lewis did really well. That's not surprising. Did he have like a historical type day at the pro day? And who else surprised you, either good or bad, off of this event?
Yeah, Matt, you might have off the top of your head. Was he tied for second best?
I believe he actually does have the best in the past 4 Elite 11s. I think the best one was 49.
Julian Sain, I think. Yeah,
wow.
I think he had 49.
Yeah.
Which those guys are somewhat similar to me as they're a little bit smaller type players, smaller frame, but just very seasoned, very repeatable mechanics. They play on time, all that fun stuff. So yeah, the pro day, this is kind of their environment to crush. So he took first with a score of 50. I won't go through all of them, but just some of the highlights. Deuce Knight actually was third best with a 48, which was a little bit, I mean, coming in raw and stuff, I just didn't think that he would do that. And he had some pretty bonkers throws. I think one, it was like, I think it was rolling to his right, which is difficult for a lefty. You know, it was like a 40-yard bomb to the end zone, which was over the shoulder the receiver. So that was kind of a wow moment for him. And that was one of the reasons why On3 had him as their MVP, just kind of the wow moments that he provided. But a lot of other like just solid guys that are like pretty clean mechanically. Like we already talked about Tramel Jones. He's just one of those guys who's, you know, like a 7v7 camp type merchant where he's just at every camp basically. And he's very polished at this point. And he's going to eat in these events. Same goes for like Luke Nickel. He's another one of these types. Very clean mechanically. KJ Lacey, all these guys were towards the top. So yeah, I guess the Hawaiian guy, I've been avoiding him because I don't want to butcher his name. And Jaron Kiwe Sagapolutele.
I think it's Sagapolutele. Sagapolutele.
Okay, there you go.
Looks about right.
Yeah, he had a good week and he finished second with a 49. So that's super impressive. Everyone talked about how he had one of the stronger arms there. It seemed like top 5 or so arm strength. So he's a big dude, 6'3", 205, long arms, big hands, the whole deal. So it was good to see him to go out there. He also won the rail. We didn't mention the rail shot from day one. He won the rail shot competition. He beat, well, I guess Dylan Gabriel participated and he beat him technically, but really he beat Hussein Longstreet to win that event. So he had a good week and kind of crushed the pro day, it looked like.
Yeah, there we go. And as you have pointed out to us for over a year now, I mean, those Hawaiian prospects at QB are sneaky. Hawaii is starting to build quite a list of guys who come over to D1 college football and make a name for themselves. Least of which Dylan Gabriel, you just mentioned. Yeah, I mean, looking at this, KJ Lacey, we've talked about him. Like, you want him to be like dominate. I mean, he was top 11 here, but I wouldn't call a 44 like dominant score. I definitely don't want to let it go unnamed that you said a great line in our group chat. Julian Ewis and Julian saying these are the Kirk Cousinses of Bryce Young's or something like that, which are like the small guys who don't run around too much and just hyper accurate with quick trigger. And so I thought that was fantastic. So you've got the Kirk Cousinses of Bryce Young's doing what we expect them to do. And coming away with a nice pro day. But I would agree, Deuce Knight is exciting there because of the athleticism, and then also this is showing accuracy and being on time. I think he made a big name for himself. Already was ascending, and now it's kind of just stamping it extra. And then Matt, the accuracy challenge is what it sounds like here. So basically, what I want to ask you is, any of these surprise you? Either who won with a big margin here or who like maybe didn't finish in the top 11 that you thought might?
For me, the biggest surprise is probably Deuce Knight. Like we already talked about, we weren't the highest on him going into the week. I came away extremely impressed by him. He's definitely rose in my rankings quite a bit now. The way he performed out there, not only was it consistent, but in pretty much every event, he was one of the higher scorers. So that was really nice for me to see for me.
Yeah, I think he was rising all along, and I think this just keeps that momentum going. But I think, Tavian St. Clair, interesting, didn't even rank on the pro day results, but number 1 by a large margin here in the accuracy challenge. We know he's athletic. I don't know what happened on the pro day, but You know, he's an athletic guy. He runs. He's got really good mechanics, and then if he's really accurate, I think there's a lot of building blocks there for Tavian St. Clair, and he was, you know, by far won that competition. Agree with you on Deuce Knight as well. And then David, I mean, I'll give it to you here. Any surprises on that accuracy results, and then kind of go into some day 3 notes if you have any before we wrap it up.
I guess I don't know. We could just talk about Keelan. Keelan Russell did well in that too. So I mean, that was one of the reasons why he did so well in this event, because he was another one of these guys that was like consistent, near the top 10 in pro day. I wasn't sure about his accuracy really coming into it, and so I think he's got a really high completion percentage, but Matt kind of talked about he's thrown it to Corey and Moore and a bunch of other good players, so it's like hard to read into that. But you know, a 50 burger in the accuracy challenge is definitely solid. Looks like he took 8th, so it's good to see. It's good to see when the really athletic, although he doesn't have tons of rushing yards in college or in high school. I think just like 20 yards per game. It's just, I don't know. He doesn't really have to because they're just so stacked. But anyways, he is an athletic player, and he can run really well. He's got really good highlights in that regard. So it's always good to see the really athletic guys show well in the accuracy stuff too.
Yeah, and then so, you know, moving into summary, I see you the official winner, the official #1 is that Keelan Russell. I mean, he's here highlighted on this final 11, but the other guys that made the final 11 out of 20: Bryce Baker, Tremel Jones, Deuce Knight, KJ Lacey, Julian Lewis, Longstreet, Luke Nickel, who we really didn't talk about too much, Saga Pulitele, Kevin Sperry, Tavian St. Clair, Malik Washington. I know some people had, I swear, some people had Deuce Knight as like the guy. So Keelan Russell versus Deuce Knight, would you say both of those guys were clearly at the top?
I wouldn't say clearly. I think there was a lot of really good performers. I think that kind of made it hard and led to a few different winners across who you were looking for. But I think Keelan Russell is a very valid winner. I mean, he did fantastic all event. You could have legitimately picked 4 or 5 guys as a winner. There's just a lot of guys who did very well in a lot of events. So
I think because of the tools that we know exist, the athletic freakiness, and then showing, I think, more, refinement than we would have otherwise thought. I mean, to me, coming out of this Deuce Knight, and David kind of mentioned earlier, he's got athleticism that portends itself to being a high first round draft pick in the NFL. He's showing it with accuracy. He's showing it on the pro day. I think, to me, he's the winner. Like, I'm going to have to put him up there. Maybe he overtakes Longstreet for me as QB3. He may wind up in a tier with, the Underwood and the Tavian St. Clair. So, do you agree with that? I mean, that's exciting for a Notre Dame fan, but do you think that's fair? Is he all the way up there as like a tier 1 type QB potentially after this event?
Yeah, I could see. I wouldn't argue with someone that decided to put him in their tier 1. I'm going to just wait and see how he does as a senior. I don't know. There's no rush really, but athletically, he's obviously crazy. He's got a 10.8 broad jump, which is 99th percentile for a quarterback. Anthony Richardson had a 10.9. He runs like a 4.53. He's going to add 20, 25 pounds of muscle probably. He's definitely a freak. He's got a big arm. I just want to see him better. His production to this point is pretty bad, but he has decent reasoning for it. He hasn't had any private QB instruction and stuff like that. So I kind of get that. And he showed good touch, I thought. So that was the one thing. He's not just this guy with a bazooka. I thought he showed good touch on his junior film. So I think he will continue to progress. And if someone put him in their tier 1, totally cool. And I'm a Notre Dame fan who I'm generally pretty pessimistic. And I'll just say I'll probably flip somewhere else anyway. So whatever. Yeah. But I don't know, man. He's definitely talented. And I could see, it sounded like a lot of people thought he was on 3. I have a feeling he's going to be on 3 as #1 because they definitely love traits, and he kind of crushes everyone in that regard. So well, it'll be Bryce. Sorry, Bryce Underwood probably is up there. Probably
It'll be hard to
traits-wise.
unseat Underwood, I think.
Yeah, like his arm is pretty special, I think. So, but I think they'll probably have Deuce Knight second based off of his traits, and then maybe like a guy like St. Clair might be like third, just because he's more, he's already more like mature, physically matured and stuff, and maybe he doesn't have as much growth or whatever. So, but yeah, totally. I think Deuce Knight will be my top 3 or 4.
Yeah, I mean, you heard it here first, folks. Next, Anthony Richardson is Deuce Knight headed to Notre Dame. So yeah, we think Taven St. Clair had a decent, solid performance. Keelan Russell, I think, confirmed the Bama offer, the Bama commitment. Deuce Knight, we just talked about. Longstreet, a guy I really like. I think he acquitted himself well. Maybe not dominant, but just kind of looked the part, looked like he should be upper echelon in general in this class. Matt, final word, and we'll get out of here. If you have anything else to add, any surprises?
No, not really. I think I've said all I've needed to.
Man of select words. All right, guys, thanks a lot. This was a great show.